everybody. Welcome to another Wiser Wednesday. Here today with Casey Fenton. We're going to be talking about building trust. So, it's a fireside chat. We're going to be digging into, what is trust like? And look, there's some really interesting. You're in a really good position to talk about this, Casey, because you've created Couchsurfing. You're also the founder of Upstock. You're based out in San Francisco. So, in the interest of trust, if you're watching like the premiere of this, we normally go out live, but we've had to record this. You'll see that this is not like the middle of the day in the UK here. So, look, I'm. For people who don't know me, I'm James Potten. I believe in a world of entrepreneurial success without burnout. And look, Couchsurfing was it's been called the largest trust experiment in the world. So you're really well positioned on this, Casey. And it's also really interesting, like looking at this in a sort of post-generative AI sense as well. So we met in Oslo back in 2018. You were speaking in a lecture theatre that then turned into nightclub with a DJ and a sauna. So, you only in Oslo. So look, it's brilliant, wasn't it? It was really good fun. So trust can take years to build and can be shattered in an instant. So over to you, Casey. How did Couchsurfing come to be?
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, James. Boy, I started off as a very shy person in this very small town. And I got into philosophy, and I kept wondering if I would live and die in that small town. And so I got to thinking, how can I escape? What will be my escape route or my escape hatch? And I started thinking about this concept of experiences and how can I gain knowledge in life? I mean, I'm just some kid in the small town. What don't I know? You don't know what you don't know. And so I started buying random plane tickets all over the world. And just with this desire to explore and hopefully connect with locals and get the true experience. But very early on, I realized that I'm just buying plane tickets and taking pictures of statues and going home. And that just kind of drove me bananas. And as a computer programmer, any good computer programmer would say, what any issue you come across, you're starting to look for lines of computer code that could maybe solve the problem. So I envisioned a social network of sorts where I could meet other people like myself. We could stay in each other's homes. We could get to know each other. And thus the idea of Couchsurfing was born. But, it took many years and lots of thought and then beta testing and iterating to finally get it there. So that was kind of the genesis. I mean, there's so much more to the story, flying to Iceland and
Iceland
University of Stories. Yeah, there's a lot there, and it was quite a wild ride. I'm still involved to a degree, but I put in my 10 years, and I'm happy to be able to work on many other projects now and advise many projects as well. So that's how it got started in the early days. But there's lots of trials and tribulations along the way, and lots of lessons learned for sure.
Awesome. And then more recently, you've been, your CEO of Upstock and when, obviously doing a bit of research and just trying to understand a bit more about your journey, it sort of feels like with Couchsurfing, you were building trust externally, in the world, in communities. And with Upstock, you've almost kind of looked internally into the business and tried to look at, well, how do we build trust with our team and with our employees? So can you explain a bit more about Upstock and how that works?
Sure, absolutely. So if Couchsurfing was a backstage pass to the world to help you, gain trust with people and then have some adventures to tell your grandchildren about or the adventures of your lifetime and learn and grow, then I would say that Upstock is really it's about sharing, and it's about sharing ownership in the projects that you build and the companies that you build. And one thing I noticed early on is that you have to really get everyone inspired to do the best work of their life. And that requires, there's different ways to do that. And one of the greatest ways and most powerful ways and straightforward ways to do that is with worker equity. Basically, that means sharing ownership in the company. And it's based on this premise that whatever we own, we identify with. It becomes part of our personal identity. And when we identify with something positively, we want to improve it. It becomes like a low-level biological exponential function. And that can be such a game changer for a company. Imagine somebody's just thinking of it as time for money. It's just a job. That's quite different than believing that you're an owner is part of your identity, and you spend a lot of your waking hours thinking, how can I improve this thing that I own along with this with my team? And that creates a state, kind of an internal state, where you want to look for every way to improve it that you can, and it happens automatically. So this is Upstock is really about bringing equity to the world, worker equity to the world, and increasing worker ownership from around 8% where it's at now to 30% by 2030.
All right,
so that's
amazing.
That's our BHAG.
Yeah. That's. I'm sure it's that's going to be an uphill struggle, because it's still still doesn't necessarily land or resonate with I guess I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? You often say to people, like, you've got to wear different hats. You've got the people who own the company, like, who start, often founders and people who've invested into it. Then you've got the directors, and then you've got the team, and founders are often kind of working at all three levels. But not always necessarily considering, like, how to get the best out of their team, or to motivate their team. So
Sure.
maybe we can dig into that in a bit. But I guess as it's about trust, like, what do you see trust as? Like, how would you describe, what in simple terms is trust?
Well, trust means a lot of things to a lot of people, and it can be contextual, it could be personal. A lot of times, I guess the way I like to talk about trust is that it's almost like a level of predictability. And it can kind of cut both ways, but generally, I think if I get a little bit more academic about it, to me it seems like it's a level of predictability, and it could be like, do I predict that you'll look after me, or you'll take care of my needs in a time of challenging times, that sort of thing. Or it could mean almost like, I trust that you probably won't look out for me. I know that's probably likely, so you can trust somebody not to actually be taking your needs into account. But I think in the most common definition, it just means this person, like, if I trust them or they trust me, they would probably be looking to do things that would make me not be taken advantage of, but be more cooperative, like, that help me, and vice versa. So it's really an indicator of whether somebody is a cooperator. Are they gaming on behalf of the group, versus are they gaming on behalf of themselves? So there's a bunch of different pieces to it. It's a complicated thing, but there are ways to boil it down.
Are you familiar with the hawks and doves sort of concept? Have you come across? I think it was in The Selfish Gene.
Yeah, a bit. But go ahead. What about that?
It's more, and they see it in nature quite a lot. Where, like, a community of doves all live very happily, and then a hawk comes in and starts taking, and slowly the community start to realize there's a hawk, and generally it happens on a cellular level. Generally, that community eject, and so hawks can end up perhaps being a little bit more nomadic as a result of the community ejecting that behavior.
Yeah, I think that if you read the book Tribal Leadership, it has a lot to do with this concept. And it basically says that the tribe, regardless of how much hard power you have, if the tribe doesn't like you, the tribe will reject you, and you'll find your way out the door soon enough. Even if you're the CEO or the owner, it really comes down to cooperation and game mechanics. If people believe that you're looking out for them, they want to push you up, exalt you. But if they feel like that you're not looking out for them, you're looking out for yourself, there will be this glass ceiling that you won't be able to cross.
Yeah. Super interesting. Look, and I guess, looking at where we are now in the world. So, couch surfing was like it's before Uber and Airbnb, and maybe inspired some of their thinking. He created it back in 2004. I think the world seems like a very different place. Do you think you could launch something like couchsurfing like now in 2023?
Absolutely. I think that with AI appearing pretty soon, within a few months, anyone will be able to create a website with their voice. In fact, they could say clone couchsurfing and and make it better somehow. There's going to be other problems, of course, which is, how do you beat the incumbent, where if the incumbent has all of the data and has all of the people already on the network, there's a switching cost where folks don't want to switch. unless the new, the replacement is 10x better. So there are definitely some things there, but as I say, like one of the greatest things that gate the internet or the development of the internet and technology is developers. And when developers are, being paid a lot to create things, you can only move so fast. But with AI, I've been getting deep into AI in the last 6 months. This is going to all change, and probably the cost of development will go down substantially, and it'll make it so that almost anyone can at least do a relatively simple app, and pretty soon anyone will be able to create any gap, really.
Okay. Yeah. But then do you think that the human population has become like less trusting, therefore it's harder to get people to then use this thing that's being generated by AI?
Well, I think that there are more and more systems out there that build trust. I mean, it's just every year there's more and more layers of trust infrastructure and services for companies or for your personal use. And with all of that infrastructure, it just makes it easier, and there's less friction to achieve trust. So I don't see that that's going to go away. One thing that I do worry about is, there's a famous research that said something like, 20, 30 years ago, the average person had a few people they could count on in time of need. And now that's like less than one. So this kind of isolation, everybody's more connected than ever, yet feeling more disconnected than ever. That's a major problem. Loneliness is a major problem.
Yeah. The sort of the double-edged sword of technology, and although through COVID, it certainly happened in the UK. I imagine also in the US, you ended up getting to know your neighbours. That's happened like locally in communities where we wouldn't have got before. People were getting on and leading their own life. So I guess that's something. There's been a localization of connections in that way here. Would you say the same for you guys?
I would say so. I think. You mean for Couchsurfing or just in general?
Just in general.
Wait, can you repeat the question? I think I missed part of it.
I'd say because in the UK we had like quite long lockdown, so we were in a situation where the only people you really saw were your neighbours. So suddenly there's a localization of of connections in that way.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily here to stay. I think in a more globalized world and a more connected world, there can be all kinds of permutations for sure. I think that time will have to tell on that one. I would say that I'm just as connected. I'm feeling just as connected, if not more connected, with folks all over the world. I have not felt the effects of that personally, so I guess we'd have to go to the research.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So if we look at if we go back to looking at within a business, I think trust is the foundation of a team being able to work. You then start to get accountability, and then from accountability you start to get results and start to get things to work. But I mean, with what you're doing, with Upstock and so on, like, what are you observing? What are the changes you see as a result of implementing shared ownership?
Well, I think the biggest thing is when implementing shared ownership is really, what is the promise of shared ownership? And that is that you want everybody to work harder, work more efficiently, try to achieve big, challenging goals together, and ultimately help the company succeed and win. And when in the past, shared ownership has been difficult, complex, expensive, kind of lawyer bound, budget bound. And as software is eating the world, as they say, a lot of legal services, this is no exception. So what I've seen is when you have a system that workers can trust and believe in, and believe that they'll get their fair share if and when the company succeeds, that's when you get the greatest emotional buy-in and the greatest amount of trust. So really what our company Upstock is focused on is the equity plan communication piece of the equity triad, as I could call it. So in the equity triad, there's 3 different pieces of equity, parts of the equities ecosystem. One is cap table. Cap tables are the place where you record and do equity reporting for, well, what does the founder have? What do the investors have? It's not very good at showing or inspiring workers, showing them what they have in an ongoing, inspiring way. Also, it's very limited, uses old technology often, resorting to stock options. And then in one of the other quarters of the triangle, we have equity plan creation. That's when the lawyer creates a big, long equity plan and custom tailors it to your company, and that could cost quite a bit of time and money. And then finally, and what I would argue is one of the more important corners, that is equity plan communication, which is really where we're focused. We do the other things, but this is where we're focused, is making sure that everybody understands what it is, why it can be trusted, what they can expect, potentially what the outcome could be for them, what might the payout look like if the company is sold or has an acquisition or has an IPO, if it 10x's or 100x's, what might your slice look like? Yeah. And we constantly remind workers what they have, and we provide all the educational materials around those distributions. So that's what we're up to, and it's a big goal, because I think often lawyers are incentivized to make things more complex. More complexity equals more billable hours. So we have tried to create a system that is at least complexity possible, but also carries kind of the right default settings for most companies, most places in the world.
Great. So it's because it's almost the horizon, the sort of the IPO or an event being too far over horizon, like, prevents it from actually being an incentive, doesn't it? If you can't see what's actually happening, almost in a more now time.
Yeah, and often the IPO is something that becomes, you're not really knowing or thinking about it until you're almost there, and then people pile on, and then they have some number that they're looking at that is a small game, the share price, right? They can start to look and see what that is. But early on in a private company, that information is not really available, or doesn't make sense. And so we're here to make it simple, make it easy to understand, and then show people in visuals and mobile apps what their share is, how it will vest. And then we even do dynamic equity, where folks can distribute equity based on dynamic factors like points, or based on KPIs.
Okay, amazing. What are some of trust? As we said at the start, trust can be, like, very quickly shattered. What are some other things that you've seen CEOs do well to, like, build trust internally?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of other major things that come to mind. One is inspiring leadership. You can be an inspiring leader. Not everybody has those skills. It can take a decade. It took a decade for me to learn some of them. But inspiring leadership is super important. People want to follow somebody that they trust, and they're inspired and called to action with. Also, you can create alignment and trust based on mission, vision, values. Hey, if you really believe in the mission, vision, values of the company, that creates alignment. That creates trust. But I think both of those can be difficult for some companies to implement. They can be confusing. They're a little amorphous, and take time to learn. So I do believe that the most straightforward and most impactful lever for trust and inspiration is long-term ownership. That creates long-term alignment. And again, whatever we own, we identify with, and whatever we identify with, we want to improve. That's ownership mindset.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's really interesting. You keep coming back to it, and it's obviously, you've built the business around it. I can really see, like, why it could be such a powerful, like, motivator for team members. We kind of, there's this, like, tricky thing, because we also want to, like, look at this post-generative AI world. Do you think, like, externally companies should be upfront around, when they've used, ChatGPT and so on to generate content or to generate information? How do you think because that area of trust is tricky now on social.
Well, I think that it's almost like, I don't know, like there's just a lot of ways to look at it. It really depends on how the context. If you're using AI to increase the speed at which you're able to serve your customers because you can create an FAQ but that much faster, or you can research legal topics that much easier for your customers and it lowers costs overall, I think that could be a great thing. If you're using it to somehow mislead people or do something that's not as genuine, and get people to believe something that is not true, then that's a big problem. So, like any tool, it's very powerful, and you got to be careful how we use it and how we inspire people to use it. There could be situations where content needs to be labeled as AI. There's that whole big talk out there, but I'm a huge proponent of using AI. I think it's almost like getting a superpower for each worker. Well, what would happen in a world where everyone could do better work and do 5 times the amount of work? That's a pretty great world. I hope it won't mean that we just replace everybody or people have to go find new jobs, but I think there's a lot of upskilling, up-leveling of existing workforce to be able to do more.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to when it's what would be an example, like a book or something like that. Yeah, I mean, we're not there yet. It's at a stage where I can't remember. Like I tried to get it to do like a sort of 10 chapter, like, and it was just quite interesting. Each chapter, and it was around like the potential of using AI to like develop your business and so on. And it's quite, it was just interesting to see. It wasn't good enough to like put out there, and I was going to it was going to be like prompted by me, not written by me. I was almost doing it like in a, let's see like how powerful this is, and it was quite repetitive. Once you were like on chapter 8, you're like, I've read the tail end of this like 7 times already.
Yeah, I think that with that you have to know it. You have to basically get to be a better prompt engineer, understand which technologies are better for this. Claude is really good for this because it has a 100,000 token window. That when you're writing, it's just such a more of a joy to use Claude. Just actually using it right before this.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, you can upload your entire book and ask, okay, where are some places in this book that could use more research? Find that research, present me with 3 options, and then I'll pick which option I like, and then please give me some sample text that could be inserted there.
Okay, yeah. Whereas with ChatGPT, we're still stuck with,
It's just got 8,000 tokens, and you lose context when you're dealing with bigger docs very quickly.
Yeah. And it's possible to split it up, put it in, but then what it can put back out again is limited.
You just have to split it up constantly working with 1 or half a chapter at a time in ChatGPT. And it can be useful for plenty of things. I mostly use ChatGPT, but where it comes to longer text, like we're doing our investor email update, that is like 10, 15 pages long. Claude is great.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll have to. What's the URL so we can share it?
Claude.ai, CLAUDE.ai.
Okay, cool. Just so people can go and see it if they want to. If we go back to like just a origin story with Couchsurfing, you actually like managed to scrape the data off the university website and then like write to I guess it was was it a few hundred people?
Yeah, a few thousand people, 1,500.
Few thousand, okay, amazing. And then then like a percentage said, yeah, you can come and stay on my couch, and so that's super cool. But interestingly, I was talking about it with a female friend, and she was like, well, it's like not what I could do. She was sort of, there's a kind of like white male privilege like element to this. Like what's your sort of like thoughts on that, and like how maybe
there's a few pretty easy solutions. One is just surf with people that you feel absolutely comfortable with, and that could be people who have a lot of references, hundreds of references. A lot of people have stayed with them. They have their reputation at stake. That's one. The other is stay with other women. That could be an easy solution right there. And so maybe that's a solution. Everybody's different. Everybody has different concerns. So, but those are two big ones.
Yeah. Okay, no, yeah. I guess, but like between the two of us, we're not gonna solve this. It's not, our lived
Yeah.
experience. So, okay. So look, I know we've got to sort of run a time frame here, and we've got to round up pretty soon. Is there anything that you think that would be good to like share with the audience? So, bear in mind, it tends to be, people who are on their entrepreneurial journey, sort of scaling or leadership journey. And, what are some of the kind of key insights you would share with them about trust and building trust, both externally and internally?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest things about building trust are, you having a personal sense of what that is for you, and basically making sure that you understand the game mechanics, game logic, prisoner's dilemma, of what does trust bring, and what are defectors and what are cooperators, and what happens when you bring a bunch of cooperators together. There's a great book on givers, matchers, and takers, and by a Wharton professor, and I think it's I remember his name. He actually interviewed me for that book a long time ago. And and so it starts to break down into all the different ways in which people interact, and you want to get more of the givers together, and maybe some matchers, but you want to avoid the takers, because that's kind of like the one taker comes in and poisons the well, so to speak. So I think there's things like that. When building a company, I think the elephant in the room these days is AI. Honestly, if you don't understand AI and you don't understand how it's changing the world, it's impossible to build a company unless you understand all the ways in which it needs to be AI enabled, because somebody else will build a company like that and they'll eat your lunch. So it's almost like you got to stop everything you're doing and really understand AI. You can't wait. So
awesome. Okay, yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's a really bizarre time when a lot of the press is sort of rallying against it. I don't think they've helped by it being called generative AI, and then you've got like AGI, like that, like GAI. There's basically
a lot of acronyms.
And they're quite close, and yet one is, not is a much more powerful kind of like message predictor that you have on your keyboard on your iPhone or whatever, and one is like taking over the world. So they're two like they're very different things. So, look, Casey, it's been really great to have you on the call today.
Thanks, James.
And look, love the you talking about trust is about a level of predictability. I think that's just like really, really powerful. And there's a key takeaway here as well, that creating a sense of ownership like also creates trust. Is there's almost like in it together type feeling in a business. So really, really love that. So look, hope for the listeners, they can go out and feel that they can consider how they can build more trust both internally and externally with their networks. If you want to like reach out, like I don't know, Casey, like where you hang out the most, but
LinkedIn is a great place for folks to reach out. Love that. Other than that, email works out well as well. Just hit me up. Find a way.
All right. Awesome. So but on LinkedIn, and look, next month we'll be interviewing Raja Skugland, which I think like from Oslo from 2018 as well. So we're looking at that kind of founder journey, sort of the 0 to 1 and trends, obviously. With AI. Finally, Casey, look, thank you so much. Really good to have you on the call today, and I hope everyone feels a little bit wiser this Wednesday for listening. So thank you.
Thanks, James. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.